kadie mekanu bafila la mana boye minu kera nyofe kuchama.
Okay, welcome to our luncheon for our 75th anniversary of the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara. Yay! Thank you all for being here and sharing this wonderful occasion with us. We have been supported and represented by so many people in the past whose shoulders we stand on. We have men and women in the League, and the people who are active right now really do stand on the shoulders of many, many others who came before us from 1938 on. And we have a few people here who will share how they got into the League, what their focus in the League was, some kind of a short story for us about their experience in League. Some of them have been with us in one league or another for over 50 years. And so, and some of them also were presidents of our league, but they will tell their own stories. And I'm going to start with one of our most recent presidents, and her name is Beth Pinton August. Beth.
Thank you very much. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today and to stand among folks that I so respect and have learned so much from. I think the story that I wanted to tell about the Santa Barbara League and my experience is the fact that, demonstrated by a 75th anniversary, we have a long history and a tremendous respect for the tradition of League. All of the positions, the processes that have served our organization well, that have made us one of the most respected and well-known organizations addressing public policy issues in the whole country, and particularly here in our own community of Santa Barbara. And my experience with that is that, yes, we respect tradition, but we are also very open to new ideas, new people, and new ways of doing things so that we will continue to be vital and relevant and effective. And I want to say that I have been privileged to be mentored by nearly everyone in this room. But there are some particular members that have taken me under their wing and have been wonderful guides and encouragers. And Linda Phillips is particularly dear to my heart. Connie Hanna, Jean Holmes, and Sheila Cammey, who is not here with us today, but she is, I'm sure, still very involved with League in Sacramento. Again, I just want to say thanks. And also have the privilege of mentioning that we as a league are being honored today by our public officials. We have Ann Stieg here on behalf of Senator Hannah-Beth Jackson, who's here to make a presentation. Would you like to step up? I guess I have to stay here. Or go ahead.
Okay, well, I had dinner the other night with my boyfriend's grandfather, who's turning 92 on Christmas Eve. His name is Lorenzo Dall'Armi and was the former Santa Barbara County Superintendent. And we were talking about some of the work that he's done and his really innovative and creative programs. And he said one of the most influential and special organizations that really assisted him in his efforts was the League of Women Voters. And so it's so neat to be here today and recognize your 75th anniversary on behalf of Senator Jackson. So we'd like to present this certificate for your outstanding dedication and commitment to encourage, inform, and active participation in government through educational outreach and the discussion of important issues, and in celebration of your 75th anniversary from Senator Hannah-Beth Jackson.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much.
I'm also pleased to say that Assemblyman Doss Williams has sent his representative, Darcel Elliott, as well.
So I get to staff DOS every year in our legislator interview with the League of Women Voters, and so that's been the last 3 years we've done that. So I can tell you firsthand how important a role you all play in making sure we hold our electeds accountable and making sure that they're sticking with the issues they say that they're going to, and that we're making progress every single year. So I'm so grateful for all the work that you do, and it's great to be able to be a part of it, and I'm happy to present the certificate for the 75th anniversary.
Thank you so much, Darcel. Thank you.
And one more, our state board, our county supervisors also have recognized our league, but unfortunately, I don't think there is a person here quite yet.
See, Janet
Salute.
is out of town. So
Oh,
she
okay,
did
and
send
Janet
a
Wolf is out of town, and Salud Carbajal had planned to send a representative who's not yet been able to join us, but hopefully will, and so I just want to recognize that and thank them very much for that honor as well. Thank you all.
Well, I'm going to call on Leslie Nixon. Leslie was a president in 1997 to 99. And I am not necessarily going to call on people in an order of first, whatever, just as they need to. Come on up, Leslie.
It's always like coming home, and I always regret that I'm not more active now than I have been, because it's been a joy to know all of you over the years. My first encounter with the League of Women Voters was in a suburb of Chicago when my husband was posted in Chicago by his business, and we found a home in LaGrange Park. I didn't know anybody. My son was entering kindergarten. I'd been out of school a few years, and I really wanted to meet people and know the community and exercise my brain. And just so I had some time with my son in kindergarten, and so it just so happened that his piano teacher was the president of the League of Women Voters, and that was the beginning of it all. She quickly put me to work. The local league was working on problems at the Cook County Jail with young people, especially who were incarcerated there prior to trial and were not well treated. The state was working on a constitutional convention, which eventually happened, but it was there. And I got to write some letters and articles for the local newspapers, and went to the big downtown library to do some research. And it just felt so good. It made me think, enjoying the people that were there. 2 years, and then IBM moved us to Oklahoma. It's IBM, short. And we were settled in a small town north of Oklahoma City called Edmond. It's a little college town. And I found a brand new league there just starting. So that was fun, because we're just starting out and trying to, know what the community wanted. Well, one thing they wanted was voter service. And I can remember we were signing in people, having people register in a parking lot in the day, and there were people standing there after dark. We had car lights on to register them. And another thing, we were studying urban renewal, which gave us a chance to really know the city well, small college town with big plans. And on the state level, which I pursued later on when we moved to Oklahoma City, it was what you faced here too, election rather than appointment rather than election of judges, which I think kind of went all over the country there. And in Oklahoma City, I had more of an opportunity to deal with some of the foreign policy issues, which has always been my love since then. It still is. Then I moved again to California in 1974, and at the time I was a single parent with a very disabled child, so I was kind of between work and my family. I couldn't do very much, but I did have a contact with the league quite early on, because in looking for a job, there was a local congressman who wanted an assistant, and I was at an employment agency, said, this might be a good job for you. But first thing I thought was, I'll talk with the league and see what they have on this man. And after I went over his points of view compared to the leagues, I decided I could never help him get elected. So anyway, so there were a number of years when I wasn't very, very active, and then became more so. My husband passed away, and I had, 24 hours a day to fill. And that's when I really became president and did things like that. And it just has been such a joy to have the opportunity to know the community and to know the people who are in positions to make a difference in the community, and to know these people who are faithful year after year, understanding what's happening and then putting in good order the arguments, for and against different issues. And thank you all. That's it.
Thank you so much, Leslie. All right, why don't we go somewhat around the table, and how about if we come and have Kathy McCammon? And Kathy had 2 terms as president and 2 widely separated terms as president. She might tell you about that in 1975 and then again in 2003. And she's very active in some other community groups right now. So welcome, Kathy.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you today on the 75th anniversary. I was trying to think of, since there were such divergent times when I was president, what was I going to say? And I figured, well, the bad news is I can't remember. The good news is probably no one else here would remember. So, but when I joined League up in another state and came to Santa Barbara, and I was young and innocent, looking for things to do, and I decided to take some adult ed classes, which I still do, and then I got involved with League of Women Voters. Well, Mary Lou Casson was involved, and she was a wonderful mentor. She was very involved in coastal issues. We had a wonderful board. Connie Clark was very involved with United Nations things, and as president, in those days we had long board meetings, really long board meetings, like 9 to 2, and you brought lunch. So the good part of that was that, not knowing anything about some of these issues, I got to hear a lot, and so I was able to then go make statements before the respective governmental bodies with the feeling that, well, I knew at least something, and I had good people behind me who wrote wonderful things. The other thing, I learned how to be a better speaker, because the city attorney at that point was Barry Capello, and he said, you will sound more effective, even if you don't know everything, if you stop ending sentences with like a question. Make positive statements. And that's been very good. Let's see, another thing I vaguely remember was that League was getting into land use as a topic about that time. And I'll never forget the 2 circles. One was natural resources and one was human resources. And they showed these 2 circles overlapping, and this little overlap was land use. So I got very knowledgeable about land use, and I'd never heard of the term before. So that was good. Then, fast forwarding, I was very fortunate to have another opportunity to serve the League, and this time it was much easier. I had 2 wonderful co-presidents. We had decided to do co-presidents, so I only had to worry about half the stuff. It was the age of computers, so I didn't have to file tons of sheets of paper in people's baskets about different topics. And things just seemed easier. And so, of course, in between the 2 times, I had become a lawyer, so I was much better at going through this material and writing statements and being able to deliver them. I can't exactly remember the issues, but I know there was a lot of land use issues involved in the time. So it was truly a pleasure. I found League to be a wonderful learning ground on how to speak, learn about issues, analyze things, and it has served me well ever since. So thank you people very much.
Well, let's have one of our mayors, Sheila Lodge, come and join us and share what she would like to share about the league. Sheila was never on our board, but always helps the league, speaks well of the league, and encourages others to join. So come and join us.
Thank you. I moved to Santa Barbara in 1952, although having grown up in Ojai, I can remember Santa Barbara from the 1930s. My mother-in-law was a member of the League of Women Voters, and shortly after coming back here, I did join. My family had always been interested in world affairs and what was going on in the community, so it fit right in. But the main thing that I got, as some of the things that Kathy mentioned, was learning how to study issues, learning how government works and how it doesn't work, and more particularly, I became chair of the Observers Committee. And this was pre-televising of governmental meetings, and so representatives of the league would go to the different meetings and then report back to the league membership as a whole. And observing some of these commission members and so on, I thought, maybe I could do that. And so I applied for and was appointed to the Planning Commission in 1973, and then because of the interest that I had gained, again, like Kathy, through the league in land use issues and urban planning, that was the particular interest. And then some of you may remember the Planning Commission was given a study that the council had commissioned, which ended up being called The Impacts of Growth. And we were asked to make a recommendation to the council on what would be an optimum population level for the city. And we did that on the basis of street carrying capacity, air basin capacity, water, and so on. And that was the famous or infamous 85,000. Well, the Planning Commission on issues like that is just advisory, just to the City Council. So, of course, I needed to run for the City Council so I could vote for it, right? And fortunately, I got elected. That was in '75, and it was on a 4-3, they can't do this anymore, 4-3 vote. It was adopted, that the resolution that staff unfortunately put in a red folder. And Gus Chavalas, some of you may remember him, waved it and said, "This is a red document, it's in the right color folder," you know, how terrible it is, and so on. But it was adopted, and I think it has served the city well. And so I was reelected in '89, and then ran for mayor in 79, I'm sorry, to council, and then ran for mayor in '81, and was elected and reelected in '85 and then '89, and I can blame it all on the league. You know? No, it really, I'm, as some of you may know, I'm an incurable public policy wonk, and so after a period of time of sort of sitting out and watching what the council was doing, I couldn't stand it anymore, and so I got back in the fray, and I've been on the Planning Commission again for 6 years now. So, and had an opportunity to help shape the general plan. And again, that's, it all came from my experience with the league, and so I'd like to express my gratitude for what I learned here and having the opportunity to work with so many of you. Thank you.
I think I'll pop across the table and have Jean come share with us. Jean Holmes. Jean was co-president in 1977-79 and has served so long and so wisely for us in the areas of energy and oil. Jean Holmes.
Well, I was told I was going to have 2 or 3 minutes to speak, so yeah, I'm going to be short and sweet. I hope it's sweet. I came to the Santa Barbara League in 1967, and there are several comments in connection with my starting years here that deal with the continuity of this organization. The first is that my first unit meeting took place at the conference room in the Goleta Valley Hospital. I don't remember the topic, but I do remember the explanation to us all that the name of the marvelous new regional library combination was called Black Gold because of all that black gold we have out there in the channel. Our attitudes were a little different then than they are now, but we're still on the black. I don't know that I want to call it gold anymore. We're still working on oil issues. The second thing was I've heard several references to starting land use in the 1970s. No. Well, probably about the first general meeting that I went to here in this league was on land use. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't the first that they had held. But at this one, my main recollection is at the end of the meeting during the discussion period, a woman stood up and said, "Do you realize there is not a lima bean field left in Goleta?" I didn't really understand the significance of that, but I understood that it was to be a momentous statement. And the other thing that I wanted to say that happened in those early years that is still going on is that I hadn't really been here very long when somebody said to me, you belonged to another league? Yes. Yeah. And were you very active in that league? Well, I did, da-da-da-da. Oh, well, we have several things that are very interesting that we think you would like to enjoy doing. So that goes on. The opportunities to participate and enjoy a committee, a one-time program, an ongoing one. There are lots of opportunities, and I encourage you all to, as I say, keep up the continuity. Thank you.
Just wanted to let you know that Jean is keeping up the continuity and supporting the new agriculture committee for our national. So she's continuing to participate.
Jean was actually a two-time league president.
A two-time league. 1.5. Oh, okay. We got to get the record straight, but I need.
One of my co-presidents, and she has been president after I was.
Well, then I need to make sure that our list is correct. So we'll have to get that down. Okay, well, I'm going to move right along and have Pat Chuzik come up and share with us. Pat was a president in 1987, and I think she might have been a co. Well, she might have helped a little bit. I know that Connie Hanna has her on the list, but she has done a lot of other things as well. So, in Goleta.
I'm Pat Chuzik, and I'm here wearing the hat of the co-chair of the Water Committee, and I primarily am going to be speaking about water. General Motors told us in '73 that we were being transferred to Santa Barbara. They would give us a week to find a home, and we should be aware of the fact that there was a moratorium. They didn't have enough water to build any more houses, so we would have to pay more than we were probably used to in Wisconsin, which we found was very true. So we came out, found a house, and got settled. And I also was told that if you're going to be an educated woman, you need to read the daily newspaper every day. and it was geared for the 6th grade reading level, so you should be able to polish that off with your second cup of coffee. So I started reading the paper, and I would read about the moratorium. And I thought that was very interesting, but nothing much seemed to be happening except there was a lot of discussion about the problems with the moratorium. Then one day I read that Lake Cachuma was spilling. I thought, wow, now the moratorium is going to be released, and that'll be the end of that. But I kept reading the paper, and there was never anything about lifting the moratorium. So I puzzled about this. I asked some friends. Some said, it's all politics. Some said, why worry? And then one woman said to me, what you need to do is you need to join the League of Women Voters. Those women worry about things like that. Well, I didn't really want to join the League because in Hales Corners, where I came from, where everybody had a half-an-acre lot and you had your own private well, the only time we ever talked about water really was when we got a new neighbor and we'd ask her how deep her well was, and it was interesting that each well was deeper than the one before. And we knew Wisconsin was having a lot of trouble because they were requiring everybody to have their wells, private wells, in bedrock. And there were a lot of farmers in Wisconsin that had shallow wells and had never been sick a day in their life, and they didn't want to do anything about their wells. So that was really about all I knew about water, and I didn't really want to join the League because I did have two friends in Hales Corners. We had a league. But all I ever heard from them was how much work it was and why did they ever agree to do this or do that. So I was teaching full-time plus everything else. And so I thought, that's not for me. And that's why I think it's most important when we talk to new people to tell them they can be as active as they want to be. Because I think this is a strength of the League. We have members that do studies and analyze issues, and then we do need members that are just going to listen to what's said and do their own research and come to improvements. Anyway, I wasn't going to teach full-time when I came out here, so I went to a League meeting. And I mentioned I was interested in water, and they said, oh, you've got to meet Alice Rippens and Joan Kearns. They know everything about water. And Joan Kearns, of course, is here. And so I did, and I found that they were as advertised, and I have enjoyed working in water since then. I think I've been on every study that we've had since the 70s. And the League, supports conservation. That's still our cheapest source of water. And we also support conjunctive use, which usually means using the well with another source of water. And we support reclamation. If ever and reclamation is reclaiming the water that has been polluted and been used. And if you ever see purple pipes being installed along a freeway, that's for the recycled water. We keep our recycled water separate, even in separate pipes down through the freeway. And then I think it was in the 90s that we had to vote on desalination and connecting to the State Water Project. And the League was very interested in those issues, and we went around talking about the advantage of putting in a desal plant and connecting to the State Water Project. And what I was impressed about that, because it's all come back now, is I was surprised how many of our members said we have to do both. We have to connect to the State Water Project, we have to desal. We're short of water, it's just terrible, and of course now we're in another drought. And I think it's important to sort of think about this, because I've heard somebody even say every city on the coast needs to put in a desal plant right away. And I think there's a psychology that goes on as we enter into a drought that we need to be somewhat aware of. So anyway, I was still puzzling over my question about the problems with the Cachuma spilling and the moratorium in Goleta. And eventually, of course, I got the answer to it. The answer to it, I'll give you at the end. You'll have to listen, because when we voted, it turned out, of course, that we voted to connect to the State Water Project, and we did vote to put in a desal plant. And it was always very interesting about the arguments that we use, because one of the things about the State Water Project is you really pay for it in like two phases. You pay for whatever entitlement you sign up for, how much water you want, and then you pay for the actual water. And what has happened is that we knew at the time that 50% was the most that they could ever meet on their entitlement. And I think you might be interested to know that this year we've been told that we will get only 5% of the entitlement to our state water. So we are in a drought that we need to face up to. Oh, back to my question now. And of course, it turns out that in Goleta, the reason why they had a moratorium was the groundwater basin was overdrafted. And Kachuma was a federal project put in by the federal government, and it had been put in before the 70s. And Alice Rippins always said that the reason why the Kachuma project was voted in was it was supposed to save agriculture, to save those lima bean fields in Goleta. And we know how that has sort of worked out. Anyway, I've enjoyed working on water, and if you have any questions about water, come to the meetings. Joan and I usually schedule one a month at the office the last Tuesday of the month.
I knew Pat wouldn't let us go without a little bit more about water, substance. Thank you, Pat. We are about in the middle of our program. Are you just getting up and getting refreshments? Does anybody need an announcement here? Susan, are we doing any? No? The desserts are there if you want to slip away and get a dessert. I think I want to go on with our speakers so that we can just have that opportunity to have everybody. Marty, would you come and share with us? Let me see when Marty I've got as I saw her as a president in 1983 to 87.
Was it? Okay. I forgot. That's funny. Martha.
Martha.
Right. Martha. And I was, well, I was first, my husband and I first came to Santa Barbara from graduate school. He was in graduate school down at Caltech, and he got one job offer. And we said, Santa Barbara, we like driving through there, but they have those funny stoplights. But maybe it'll be okay. So with the one job offer, we came here, and that was in October 1968. And in January, the second week of January, my son was born. And 2 weeks later, the oil spill created havoc on our coast, and I still have vivid images of people just standing and crying, and of birds being picked up, and I mean the whole thing was horrible. But the best part about it for me was to see this community step up, and people love this community. I had never been in a place, I came from Chicago and then Pasadena, I had never been in a place where people loved living where they were living, because a lot of people, and well, we won't need to go through the snow and everything, but it's just, it's such a great community. So I thought, I've got to do something after I did some helping with the cleanup, and League of Women Voters offered babysitting while they had the meeting. So I thought, I've got this 3-year-old and a newborn, maybe that's a good thing for me. So I started out because of babysitting, and it worked. I really I figured I got to do something. And I was a teacher, so I saw the school board, Sheila Lodge's Observers Corps, and they got me a big button, and it said League of Women Voters, and I sat down at the school board meeting and listened to them, and then we would go to Sheila's house, and each of us would report. And the most interesting part was I was fascinated by the water board and by the planning commission and by especially the city council at that time. So I found out that I really had a life beyond teaching, and there really were things going out there that were fascinating. So I became active in the League of Women Voters. And I tell you, I have to thank you just like my predecessors too, because what the League does it's almost like law school, which was later on for me, but what it does is teach you to look for those facts, look for them on both sides, and try to figure out what the solution would be coming up, but then more facts come in and so on. So you become a student of life, really, and I absolutely love still doing that, you know, because I'm a little bit of a policy wonk with Sheila. The two issues that I remember vividly in the 80s were the homeless people, because for some reason, and I don't think before this we were looking very much at who they are, but I know in the mid-'80s we had a couple meetings. I think there was a local study on who are these people and how can we help them. And when you think about it, that's exactly what we're doing now, is trying to help them, but trying to figure out who they are and what the problems are, and if we can really, you know, help through those problems. And I think it got started in the 80s, where we were looking at the homeless people. Second thing was oil. And Jean, bless your heart, you're still doing oil, but it's amazing. For me, it meant that as president of the League of Women Voters, I had to give a lot of long statements to the county board of supervisors. But every Sunday afternoon, and it wasn't 52 weeks a year, but probably 48, I would go to Ruth Saudi's apartment, and she was at Vista Del Monte. We would sit on the floor just surrounded by papers, and she would tell me what the EIR said, because I really didn't have time to read a whole EIR then. I learned how to read it faster when I went to law school. But and she would tell me the points and so on, and we would write our statement for that week. And honestly, it was just about every week. It was amazing, between Chevron and Exxon, and I made a really bad decision with Exxon, because our Christmas card that year, I had a sign up that said, "Get oil out," or something. I don't know what it was, something like "Get rid of Exxon." I forgot that a couple of my husband's buddies worked for Exxon, and we sent it off to New Jersey, and it wasn't good, but anyway. And I think in general, though, the League is so highly thought of, that what I really enjoyed was going to the conventions. I enjoyed standing up and saying something at a convention. I realized I could do that without fainting, so that was good. And so I learned that I could have a voice, and it was truly wonderful, and it still is. So people thank me for coming back after being on the Planning Commission, the City Council, and Mayor. Well, truly, there's no other place to be, because I got to get caught up with all the issues that you're dealing with right now, like agriculture and so on. So I thank you so much for what you do, and 75th anniversary is amazing. Two real fast things, and that is, when I opened the directory, when I first joined, I was appalled. And that was because I was 20-something. And I looked, and we were listed as our husbands' names. So I was Mrs. Joe Bloom, and all I could think of was, Joe doesn't want to belong to the League of Women Voters. He doesn't want his name in here. And then in parentheses, we would have our name, and mine was always Martha. That's why. So I don't know how we got rid of that, but I know I hated it right away. It was really rough. And then the other thing was, we were all wearing skirts. I don't remember when I finally found jeans and pants, but thank God we got out of that one too. So anyway, thank you.
Well, we've got a few more of us, and so I'm going to jump to Barbara Marjoram around the table. And Barbara has served on the national board and served a long time in and lived in LA, and so she's a longtime supporter, and I'll let her tell her story.
Thank you, Joni. Well, it was great to have this chance to look back at League. I got out all my old files, and it was just like old hometown, and discover what I had learned from the League, which was, you heard, incredible things, that League gave more back to us, I think, than we gave to the League. I was president of the Los Angeles League of Women Voters in the dark ages. Actually, it was 1969 to 1971. And then I served later, it was a full-time job. I got paid $50 a month. We had an office and a full-time secretary, and those long board meetings, and they lasted all day, and everyone smoked. It's a wonder I'm still here. I didn't smoke, but everyone else, it seems, did. And it was a full-time job being president, and I went to the office every day, but I loved it, and I had the opportunity to work with some of the finest people I've ever worked with. And then I served for 2 years on the national board, and which I left to work for Common Cause Los Angeles. It was right after Watergate, and Common Cause was going out into the states, and we began working on a political reform initiative which changed a whole lot of things in California. I got started because I had 3 kids and I wanted to get out of the house. And you heard that from other people too. I was in the San Fernando Valley, and it seemed like everybody had 3 kids. And they had a lot of night units. And so I was so anxious to have some kind of a discussion that was not about diapers or toilet training or something, to meet with other intelligent women and talk about important things. And I really loved that. We had 2 meetings a month. And Los Angeles had 3 different leagues: the Valley, the Metro, and the West. And we had 24 units. And many of them met during the evening, some of them during the day. But you had lots of choices where you could go to. But LA is a big city with a big population. One of the things I wanted to mention was the LA League spent a lot of time and put great emphasis on training. And we had nobody could be a discussion leader at a unit until they had taken the 4-session discussion leader training and consensus building. It was a great course. I mean, I still value what I learned in that course. And each unit then would have a trained discussion leader and a very well-informed presenter. We had speakers training, a 4-session speakers training by a local expert in public speaking. And we placed great emphasis on our voter services. All leagues do. I think that's probably what we're best known for, even though all of our programs are spectacular. But our voter service, I think, fills a need in every community that no one else fills. And so we spent a lot of time on the pros and cons. In Los Angeles, we developed what we call the dum-dums. That was what we did among ourselves. We didn't do that publicly. And these, and actually our husbands really liked the dum-dums. They were 2 sentences about the ballot measures, and a yes vote means this and a no vote means that, and not a whole lot of rhetoric when some speakers get up and tell you all about referendums and on and on and on. This was just the bare bones of it, and they were very popular. I was on a radio show once, and they gave me 1 minute for each ballot measure. So you really had to get it down to the essence of it. So the pros and cons were a big part of what we did, and we were very much in demand with service clubs and so forth, and actually we got good reviews, and so we decided to start charging for the pros and cons speakers. And we charged $25, and that was a lot of money in those days. I think it still is. But we charged $25, and it was really controversial. Many of our members said that League cannot do that. That is against our principles. We got more invitations after we charged $25 than we had before. And they'd give us 30, 35, 40 minutes to speak. They wanted to get their money's worth. And before that, we would come in and they'd say, okay, you have 10 minutes. So it turned out to be a really positive thing, although it was quite controversial. And last but not least, and I think a lot of this training, I think, as you can see, some of our trained leaders here, really meant that many of our people went on to serve in local government because they probably knew more about local government than most elected officials ever know. But I want to close with another thing that many people here have made reference to. When I was looking back through all my old records, I found this statement that League presidents were asked to turn in a statement. And I'm going to read you what my finest hour was. A small, but I felt significant act was my attempt to get the League, the press, and the national board of the League to accept women under their own names rather than their husbands' names. And on the long list of League presidents that graced the wall of the Los Angeles League of Women Voters, I was the first person to appear as Mrs. Barbara Marjoram and not Mrs. Donald L. Marjoram. And I carried this same concern with me when I went to the National Board, where I had a much tougher fight because there were a lot of Southern women on that board. And they were big believers in Emily Post and etiquette and all that. So, but I did get them to change. Lucy Benson was president at the time, and she changed too, and forever after, we are now ourselves and not our husbands. And I thought that was, it was a real step forward. Also, getting us out in Los Angeles when we had League days, and we would have big League days at big hotels, they would always put it in the social section. And that was just ridiculous. And so I really worked with the LA Times to get them to change that too. Thank you.
Oh, may I have my pen back? Oh, right. Bev King. Bev was co-president of... she was president. She was president? Okay, we've got a couple of different times here, I guess. In 1999 to 2001 is what I have here. So we're going to stand corrected. You fix it up for me. Founder of our Ed Fund, and a long-time person at the California League in membership and management training advisor right now. So she'll tell us our story. Beverly King.
Well, on a personal side, our league was founded in 1938. I was born in 1938, and I'm a 51-year member of this local league. But I want to speak to you about the Santa Barbara League of Women Voters Education Fund and how that came about. Leslie was president just preceding me, and she and I worked very closely together. I was her first vice president, and we had a concern about finances within the league. And Don Sweeney, if you knew Don Sweeney, he was a marvelous man. He was our treasurer on our local board, and the three of us would talk about how are we going to address this thing? Because the State League of California, we would send our education money, our tax-deferred monies from people who made gifts to us, up to the State League. They would administer it, and we really didn't have that much control over well, it was an involved process. And we knew that someone had made a bequest to us, and we didn't want to have the State League's taken out of it. And so that we started thinking about things like that. Well, then when I was president, we decided to move on that. And if you ever start your own education fund, there are a lot of hoops that the Secretary of State's office makes one jump through, and it's quite time consuming. And none of us at that time on the board that was serving with me, none of us had the time to do it ourselves, as Don Sweeney wanted us to do. He said, oh no, you can just get all the stuff together and do it yourself. Well, Connie Hanna and I, we were involved with our suit against the city of Santa Barbara with regard to the La Entrada project and the height limitations and views. And also, at the same time, we were leading the charge against, I always want to say Davy Crockett, I can't even remember his name. Fess Parker. Yes, Fess Parker, because that was his infamous initiative to do an end run around the planning department for his hotel. And so I had enough on my plate dealing with those two things, and bless her heart, Penny Bloodhart, who was also on our board, she undertook gathering all the information together, but we hired a lawyer to actually create and go through all the legal steps. But all of the groundwork that had to be done was done by Penny, and it was probably so wise because, you know, people want to give to the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara, and we had to have a channel that really made it easy and convenient for them to do that. And while this was going on, a woman called me, because as president, I would write the letters asking people to give. And a woman called me, and she said, now, you know, Beverly, she said, I'm a very elderly woman, and I'm going to leave a bequest to the League. As long as you don't ask for any more, as long as I don't have any more letters asking me to contribute. And I said, well, that's fine, Mrs. Ash. I can make sure that the League does not send you any letters, but I can't do anything about what the National League might do in asking you, or what the State League might do. And she said, no, that's all right. If you just take care of the local league and see that they don't send me any more letters, that would be good. And I said, fine. So I did, because not only did I write the letters, but I was also involved with the production of seeing that they got sent out. So I always made sure that her letter did not go to her. Well, after about 2 years later, she passed away, and we found out that she had left a bequest for us, and I had thought, that's really nice. We'll probably have a nice bequest of about $5,000. Well, when her estate was settled, she had left us $65,000. And of course, that was a huge gift to the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara, because the purpose of the Education Fund is to raise money to support the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara in the work that we do, in our voter service work, in our public education work, and in all that we do going out into the community. And so this is an appeal to you. When you get your letter from Shane Stark asking you to contribute, remember that that's how we spread the word of all the good things that we do. And I thank you.
Oh, in today's dollars, how much would that be? Oh, my goodness. And we have Linda Phillips over here. I think we've done everybody at this table, and then Connie's going to finish up. Linda Phillips was about 4 or 5 years, 2007 to 2011, just preceding, let's see, Beth Penn in August, I think. And so she was our president. Come join us, Linda.
was preceding Beth and Stacy Shepherd, right? And yes, I was president for 4 years. But what I really want to talk about right now is I've been amazed at some of the common threads with some of the other presidents here. And so I want to tell my story. Came here in 1966 and decided to try several organizations to see what would be interesting for me. And my mother had been a member of the League of Women Voters. The only thing I remember her ever talking about in relation to the League was that there was a local judge back in Kentucky who called them the legal voters. So I tried, and this was the organization that resonated with me the most. I started out, the first thing I was assigned to was I was asked to lead a discussion unit. And somebody else talked about the discussion units. And Barbara just talked about the training they had in the LA League. I don't remember particular training, but I certainly, I learned how to lead discussions. And that was the first thing I did in League. And after a year of that, I resigned from that position because I didn't know when I'd be able to come to units again. I was about to have a baby, and one of the members of the unit looked at me and said, "Oh, you won't have a baby for a little while, will you?" And I said, "Well, he was due this month." So I was a little less active for a year or so. But I got back into being really active with League by being an observer. And of course, I kept going to the meetings, and the League meetings, and I thought particularly the discussion units, but also the community forums, were like another college degree. And so again, this is I've heard this from other speakers as well. It really was like another college degree to me. And I had been through graduate school, and I learned so much from League. And I became an observer, and again, I learned a great deal. I observed the Goleta Water Board and the Goleta Sanitary District Board. And eventually, I got involved in some activist groups that ended up passing a moratorium. And then I told my husband that I was considering running for the Goleta Water Board. And he said, "Well, you go to all the meetings, you might as well be able to make decisions." So I served on the Goleta Water Board for 8 years, served on the Regional Water Quality Control Board for 5 years. But my initial education for all of that was being an observer and being active with people like Joan Kearns over there. And Pat came a little later, I think. But
Don't forget Alice Rippens.
and Alice Rippens, yes. And so, you know, I owe all of that to the League. Since then, I've been active locally and statewide, mostly on hazardous materials issues. We used to call the people who followed these particular issues watchdogs. Now we are consultants. I liked watchdog better, actually, because that's what I really felt we were, and still feel. And eventually I went on the board and became president, and during that time we observed the 100th anniversary of women being able to vote in California. 10 years earlier than nationally. And so that's one of the things I remember from that time. And another thing that I particularly remember is that this was when the Affordable Care Act was passed, and we had a very controversial public lecture, I guess, or a public session that Lois Capps spoke at. It wasn't a regular league meeting at all, but we co-sponsored it, and people from our Ed Fund helped with the questions. There were written questions for Representative Capps, and the league chose which questions to ask and did the usual thing that we do in our voter service forums, and we got roundly criticized by some people because they thought that we vetted the questions. So, which of course we hadn't, and trying to remember all this, yesterday I came across Irene Stone's letter to the editor. She was Ed Fund president at the time, explaining exactly what League had done and trying to consolidate questions and get answers as best they could. So that's a couple of things that I remember from being president. The other thing is there are three things I want to impress on you. One is the value of the Observer Corps, which I hope we'll be able to revitalize. And the second and really related thing is that League can be like another degree in college. It's a tremendous education for everyone. And the third one is I just want to put in a plug for conventions. And I'm wearing this pin that I actually got at one of the state conventions. And I agree, I think it was with Marty, that conventions are really very special, and I hope more of you will be able to go to some of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. And last, Connie, would you wind us up here? Connie had 2 terms as president, I think, at 1988 and 89, and 91, 93.
Yeah.
And I just feel like she might be a real partner as we're going along here.
I'm the mop-up crew. And I don't do dishes either. I'm really glad to have this spot because there are a couple of things I want to add. When we talked about changing the name of watchdogs to consultants, I want you to know that I had a gentleman confront me once and say, well, you have all these paid consultants, and he just threw me for a loop. I had to explain to him that all our consultants receive no pay whatsoever, but calling them consultants did sound like an income, so if you guys want to ask for money, you can try, but I don't think you're going to succeed. And I'm sorry about Marty because she didn't mention, she mentioned the child care, but she didn't mention that there were a lot of league board meetings during her presidency when the small child was playing under the table during the league meeting with his toys. And so our child care didn't always work as it was supposed to, I think. I was allowed to introduce any subject that nobody had touched on, and I do want to introduce one. It's very common now with nonprofits to have a hired executive director, and very often a director and a secretary.
I think it's really important to understand about the League that there are no hired people ever on the staff at the League. All the work is done by members, and that keeps a very active membership. If anything is going to get done, it's going to get done by one of you, and it's going to be done, unfortunately, without recompense. So I think it's important because it means that the people in this room have contributed enormous amounts of time, talent, expertise, and done it all voluntarily. And so I'd like a hand for everybody in the room who works for League. We are glad that all of you could come and share this special occasion with us. We had parties at our 50th and 60th, and I think a 75th is an excellent thing to celebrate. And I've concluded, listening to these speakers, that all League members are public policy wonks. There's just no question that if you were not interested in government and how it operates and how it ought to operate, then you probably wouldn't stay in the League for very long. But I respect all of you policy wonks, and we're glad to have you all on board. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for being here, and again, thank all the volunteers who put a lot of effort in. Jane Benefield wanted to share some.
I just want you to take some food home. We really don't want to throw it away. I usually take it to the mission.
Jane is saying make sure and take some more food home.
This is about
that are recyclable, and Bonnie's going to stand back by the recycle bin so that we know which one it is. And Kathy McCammon would like to make an announcement, and I think we are all pretty much tied up here. Thank you very much.